In the case study on I would like to play but I don't know how, a case study of pretend play and autism was very intriguing and informative when it came to the case that was being presented. In this case, it introduces us to an unnamed 10-year-old boy living with autism. This young boy is officially diagnosed with autism at the age of 3 and 10 months old. This young boy is in a regular second grade classroom and is provided a special education teacher and a classroom tutor. While he attends school, he is provided with speech therapy once a week, and he attends the university clinic twice a week for additional speech therapy. The personal tutor at school works with him 4 to 5 times a week after school. When it came to this young boy's psychological, behavioral, and or social problems, this boy had to overcome quite a few problems. First, the young boy involved in this study was assessed at the low first grade reading level, and his math skills were in the low second grade level. Also, when the speech pathologist at the school tested this young boy, they had a hard time getting an accurate test score. This was because the measures had to be terminated after just a few items because the young boy was very stressed and eventually refused to participate. When it came to a diagnosis, they ultimately came to the conclusion that the diagnosis was autism spectrum disorder, or ASD for short. According to Hess, autism spectrum disorder is described as having limited play skills, especially when play involved pretend. When autistic children use pretend play, they lack substitution of objects for props. Also, kids with autism rarely engage in spontaneous play. There were many signs and symptoms when it came to this young boy in this case. Some of the signs included poor eye contact, poor conversation skills, rigid peculiar topics, poor turn-taking, poor pretend play, poor awareness of listener needs. Also, when his child was in the classroom, he had very limited spoken words or sentences. When he was in the room, he stuck to simple sentences that he knew. These two support the case of autism because, as the case stated, many times children with autism have poor communication and conversation skills. Since he had a hard time communicating in class, it made it hard for him to grow and succeed in the classroom, resulting in him reading at a low grade level. According to our text, some signs and symptoms included delay in spoken language, difficulty in initiating conversation, repetitive language, and inflexible routines. There are lots of evidence to support the diagnosis of ASD. The evidence from the case that support the diagnosis was his low level of interaction. The level of interaction that he was showing in the beginning of the case was evident to the interaction of younger children. Also, the child eventually got better because of treatment, but in the beginning he had difficulty answering questions that started with WH. Children with autism have difficulty answering these types of questions because they struggle with processing the piece of info that is required by the person asking the question in order to answer it correctly. The case decided to give play therapy a chance to see how the child involved would react and cope. Play therapy was used after telling of a story, and the young boy used props to act out what he was told and what he heard. There were some findings that were very interesting to read. First, the total number of spoken words for both child and adult during role play did not vary during the 12 sessions during the 2-month intervention. The case mentioned how he was able to answer questions correctly during role play at 100% versus 72% during the first session. The young boy was able to answer scenes from 16% to 36%. He was also able to act out appropriate play for the story with more of an ease. He was able to use different voices when acting out other characters. His score in answering yes or no questions increased by the end of the case from 90% to 100%. Nobody can know what's going to happen in the future, but we can have hopes and dreams for what the future holds. In the future, hopefully this young boy's words will develop more. It is clear that the concept of play therapy has been helpful for this child when it came to things like answering select questions, routines, appropriate play, and so much more. Although it might not have changed the number of spoken words, it still helped him to grow and become more comfortable, helped him to become more verbal, and helped him to learn more social roles and other needs and intentions. Overall, in my opinion, I find play therapy to be very helpful and helpful thing to use. I have witnessed it done in person with children, and it is amazing to see how comfortable over time the child grows with the different characters being introduced and the different personalities the child eventually develops for each character. This type of therapy, I believe, gives the child opportunities to grow a personality and get more comfortable expressing themselves. When the time comes and the child is ready to start trying to play and interact with other kids their age, they are able to be comfortable with being their true selves. It is hard enough being a child in society, and it makes it even harder when people don't understand that you want to play, you just don't know how. Play therapy almost teaches children how to interact and play, and in my opinion will make the child happier at the end of the day.